second.
Okay.
So hi, everyone. This is Dr. Alana, and it is my pleasure today. David has been with us before. David Leasure is someone I worked for a long time ago. He was my boss. And I'm delighted every time he comes back because his specialty is helping graduate students of all kinds do better, learn the skills, keep improving personally as well as professionally. And with that, David, I'm going to turn off my camera, so it's all up to you. I'll be back at the end.
All right.
I look forward to this.
Thank you, Alana. Thank you so much. And it's good to be here. I love talking about this subject. I used to be a provost at Western Governors, where I really got into this topic of personal development and achievement. And now I work as a collegiate faculty member, full-time faculty member at the University of Maryland, first-term experience for graduate students. So I just keep wonderfully landing in good places and gaining more and more colleagues over time that help me. I'm going to start with a few quotes. I do want to talk overall about a research-based proven method of helping you to change and overcoming immunity to change. That's an important term. And each of us has our own types of immunity to change. And then I'll show you, it's tough to say the word vaccination right now with everything that's been going on for the last year. But essentially, we will learn to create our own vaccines to our own immunity to change. And let's go for it. So there we go. So here are some quotes that kind of guide this talk, and the first from Albert Einstein, that everything that's valuable depends on our opportunity to develop in our society. And to me, that just fits so well with my philosophy that we owe it to ourselves and the world to do all we can. And in that context, kind of cute, improvement begins with I, which will be the primary focus of the talk today. Although it ends with T, and I don't know. We'll just keep going. But we're not in it alone, according to Bill Gates. We all need people who will give us feedback. That's how we improve. So we'll find a way to put that into here. And one of the biggest things that creates immunity to change, it was worth taking up some space for a quote, is that mistakes are learning opportunities. And, you know, for me, that's primarily it. I put myself in situations like even giving a webinar for fun because they give me the opportunity to learn, and I may not admit all my mistakes that I'm making while I'm giving the webinar to you, but I'm cataloging them, but I'm also not letting them drag me down. So I hope that over time, if you're one of those 95% of people who at some point are plagued by mistakes that feel really bad to you, you are able to take some of this today and discard them except for their learning value, and not let it be an impediment to your own change. So I don't want this to be all about me talking to you. That's really boring, no matter how interesting I could be. So I want you to chat and give me feedback along the way. And I will start with, think about a wish that you have, one that really matters, a true wish. And I always recommend to people, no matter how wonderful your thoughts are, write them down, because until you write it down, it's just a fleeting thought, and we don't want it to do that. So As you're thinking about that wish, have you tried to achieve it before? And what happened? And then share that in the chat. So I've got Andy's. I wish I had the daily motivation to work on my dissertation, which I think is a good way of looking at it. What can I do on a daily basis? That's a smaller wish and therefore more achievable. And Andy, keep that with you with this. Oh, good. Another A&M. Thank you. Yeah, I taught briefly at Corpus Christi for 4 years. I was a tenured faculty down there. We can be so hard, Marina, on our own research actually being useful. We want it to be earth-shattering, I think, often, and then we run into the practicals. But I agree with you. You want what you do to matter, and we'll explore that individually, each of us, as we go through this workshop. And Sherry says, I have a wish to avoid anxiety and fear. So these are very important. This is the starting point, and I'm going to give you a chance to pull it apart a little bit with a framework here that works. Before we get to that, I actually want you to see someone who graduated. He's an undergraduate, but when I started at WGU, this was one of the most impactful things that happened to me that year, and I hope we can get it to play here. We may not be able to get it to play.
Let me see, David. It's in the video, right? Let me
yes,
hit
it's a YouTube video.
I don't know.
It's in the queue.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not playing. Let me see. Wait a second. Play video. Now let's try it. No, I'm not getting the right links.
Okay.
You'll have to tell us what he says.
I'll tell you what he says. He starts out, imagine a boy with a family that has fallen apart, 3 brothers in prison, had to go live with the neighbors to get out of the negativity of the home. And this was early on in his life, and how he just kept plugging away and saw education as the gateway to a completely different life. So he's reinventing himself. And WGU is unique in the United States because even at the undergraduate level, it's very much like being a graduate student in Europe, where it's pretty independent. If you don't motivate yourself to study, you don't succeed. And so he had to find all the ways to do that. And he talks about it in the video. And you can download this set of slides, and this link is active. And then there's a smaller one at the bottom here, which is almost overwhelming to watch. And I didn't want to do it to the group, but I wanted you to see it. It's a woman who she called this "Today is my someday," because she had always put education off as a someday thing. She had 10 children, and on her husband's birthday, on the way home from work, he died in a car crash, and she didn't have a degree or anything going on. It's an amazing story of her perseverance and accomplishment. But it's hard to watch. So we will go forward now, and I want to introduce a tool here that is 7 questions, I call it. And I start with something like a wish, and you could be doing this while I'm talking. Take your wish and ask yourself, and what's the point of that, or why do I want to do that? And until you've asked that why question 7 times, or until you just can't get past it, you haven't really peeled it. We want to separate our wishes from a nice to have wish to a must have wish. We really need something that we have to, when I did my doctorate, it was like, I quit a great job. I became poor, a graduate student in a small 2-bedroom apartment, and but I had to do it, and it was wonderful, and it just kept going. So you want to find the wish that really drives you that way. And motivation is not all there is to it, but motivation is a big key of what works. So I just gave you an example. We don't even have to read through it all here, of 7 questions that I did against. My goal is to help students learn and persist. And it is. I call it my life's purpose. And I have done this exercise multiple times with this. So it gets down to, I think an important point I want to say here about motivation is you can really test your motivation by asking, what am I willing to give up? I gave up a job and a really nice income in order to make $9,000 a year as a graduate student. And it was wonderful because I was willing to sacrifice that job for all the benefits that I expected to achieve from that doctorate program. And the challenge is there will be more than motivation in this. I thought about a quote that said, when the why is big enough, the how takes care of itself. I don't think that's true. We've all had big whys, but the how has been difficult. So let's go on, and we'll talk about the last sentence here. Is there an approach that provably works? Yes, indeed there is. One of them is WOOP, and that has the research behind it. A separate line of research is self-development and SOL, and I'll explain what that is. And I've combined these two, and I think that it's really important to have both there, and we'll unpack that in this workshop. First, let's talk about why some of the things, no matter how important our why is, we still lack on the how. Maybe our wishes aren't well defined, or we feel like we really wish this, but we haven't accepted the responsibility for it. We have to go all in on the ownership of that wish and achieving that wish. Or we might sit back and say, I really want this, I want to own it, but I just don't think I can do it. I don't have faith in myself. Low self-belief, low self-efficacy. Maybe there are just insurmountable obstacles. If I hadn't had an inheritance from my grandparents, it wasn't huge, but it was enough to supplement like a scholarship to get me through the doctorate program. I might not have been able to overcome that obstacle. And so I'm, first of all, very appreciative of it. And sometimes I'm impatient about my changes and I give up too soon. So let's talk about WOOP for a second. Anybody recognize why I have this bird here in the picture? Wish for change is what the W is. And O is the outcomes. And that's a little confusing, but this is the psychologist Gabriela Oettingen came up with this acronym, and I didn't want to change it. So we'll go into what the outcomes are. That's actually, if this wish were to come true, what would the benefits be? And are they really big benefits? Yes, that's a whooping crane. Thank you, Cole. But one of the things we want to do, and most people don't do, is they think about, oh, I want this, and here's why I want this, but they don't think about realistically the obstacles that can get in the way. And there was a fighter pilot in Vietnam, Admiral James Stockdale, and he was imprisoned for 7.5 years in Hanoi Hilton. They broke his legs twice. They beat his eardrums, everything. And a reporter asked him, how did you keep going? And they talked about that for a while. But the real question was, well, could you tell who was going to make it and who wasn't going to make it? And he said, oh, that's easy. The optimists aren't going to make it because they'll say, we're out of here by Christmas. And then Christmas comes and you're not out. And then we're out of here by Easter, and Easter comes and you're not out. So it's called the Stockdale paradox. And it is about having realistic understanding of the challenges you face while having faith in yourself and faith in life that you're going to make it through it and achieve the wish that he had, at least, which was to get out of prison camp and make it hard for the enemy to do what they wanted to do. And he found, like we talked about earlier in the chat, if you do something every day, if you make a difference every day, it really helps along the way. So we'll get into this. When you've identified your obstacles, that thing you can do every day, or that bigger thing you need to do to structure what you do every day, is your plan for success. There's one more little tidbit I want to offer here about Dr. Ertingen. And I didn't know this when I first read her work, but she is actually a princess somewhere in Europe and a psychologist in New York. So maybe the wish instead of goal, she thought a wish would be a better thing. It fits better. Otherwise, you have goop, right? So we went whoop, and let's dive into it. So you might say this girl here is meditating, but she may also be thinking about her wishes. And the wish part of this process starts with identifying a serious wish, something to change or achieve, change in yourself, and that's worth sacrificing for. Whether it's your time, your money, your friendships. I'm not saying you have to, but you have to put other things in the proper perspective to make room for your wish. And another person I know says, if you don't control your environment will control you. And so that's part of the sacrifice. It's not all of it. So take some time right now. Write down, it can be privately, write it down what it is. If you still stick with the same wish, that's great. Otherwise, write down your new wish, and if you've got one that you know is worth sacrificing for, and if you want to, chat it down. I'm looking at your other wishes that you've written so far. We will keep going with that and talk about the outcomes. There's just 3 outcomes here that are possible in the pictures. You could graduate, you could get a job, and you could even have a change that deepens your relationship with your family. What I want you to do again is take a little time to visualize and identify the positive results that you want that come from achieving your wish. So this is putting your wish into perspective and helping you understand how valuable it is to you. So first, do it privately. If you want to share, that'd be great in the chat. What would be the benefit of finishing everything on time for Sherry? What really motivates me in my study? And why? Why would that be important to you? Or maybe you want to reformulate your wish a little bit and make it more clear. That's one thing we want, is an actionable wish. And we can't go back 10 years ago. So Daria, got to come up with another one. Even the fairy princess can't make that happen for us. Okay, Sherry, yes. And then work through your graduate with a doctoral degree, work through what the benefits will be after that to you. And it's important to not just think about yourself in this. Often we're more highly committed and motivated when we have someone else who is depending on us to achieve that wish. And making that explicit can help us do that. I did a study on our doctoral students in Colorado one time and found that the married ones were much more likely to persist and achieve their goals than the unmarried ones. And I was never quite sure about that, but I think it has to do with others depending on you and also the commitment that you've made to them. So you could work some of that in to the positive results that you would want to get. And Renee, I know exactly what you mean about letting yesterday stay in yesterday. That is that ability to shed feedback and move forward, or just the events even. Hector, that seems like a really good concrete expression of your wish. And financially secure is definitely part of that environment that you need to control to be able to not let your environment control you. Vladimir, I think that's good. Try now the questions and peel that one. What does it mean to succeed in my project? Is it to do good fieldwork, analysis, and thesis? It probably is. There may be some other things there too. Thank you, Robert. Sherry, I know that goal. Had that one myself. Thank you again, Robert, for the comment there. And Daria. Yes, that's a good wish. Now, as you work on the outcomes, Daria, you can do this privately, but what are the benefits of graduating for you and your lovely family? And another way to say, write it down that I like is ink it, don't just think it. and you ink it so that you can come back to it and make it a touchstone in your life so that you keep repeating for that. I think we're doing pretty well on time. We don't have a lot of slides to go through, so I want you to be able to have the time you need to apply some of your thinking and then download this set of slides and go back to it and rework it with a little more seriousness and understanding when you have more time so that you can make the plans that you need and follow an outline for it. So we've got 6 pictures here, various obstacles. This gal might be saying it's really hard. I don't know if I have the strength and stamina to do this. This guy said I'd rather lay on a branch in a tree. Or maybe we waste too much time with social media and other distractions on the computer. Just socializing. Maybe we love to socialize. Of course, that's been toned down a bit lately. It's not safe to do that, but we may curl up in our armchair and watch a video on YouTube or something. Or this last panel in the lower left, just have too many things going on. There are many things, and for each of us, those things are personal. I have my own things that slow me down, and I have my own things that knock me completely off track. And what I try to do is understand what they are, peel them back a little bit. It's like some of the recommendations for weight loss. Is you have to know when you feel like you have the need to cheat on your diet. What causes that? Well, for me, it's late at night. I'm sitting around watching TV and some family members start to snack a little, and then I've got to snack a little, so now I know that. So I want to understand that obstacle, though, and what triggers it, how I feel, what is going on that makes it happen, and then what can I do about it is the next step in this. So write down your obstacles. You can share them if you like in the chat that are in the way of your goal. And one thing I'll tell you is this whole WOOP is a learning process. So it's as much about learning about ourselves and about our relationships and our environments and our habits, and then figuring out what to do about them in order to get everything to line up with achieving our goal. So what you can do with planning is you can figure out, yeah, Vladimir, I feel it. What you can do with planning is with your obstacles and your wish and your benefits is you have them all in the same document. Define what it means. If you can say, here are the things that must happen for my wish and to be achieved. And it can be as simple as I walk across that stage. But ideally, it's a measurement that you can measure your progress. So if you have that endpoint and then can back up, even if it's not quantifiable, like weight loss is quantifiable. I lose a pound a week or whatever it is. But progress on your wish might be, okay, I want to finish my dissertation. Before that, I need to finish my 5 chapters. Before that, I need to defend my proposal. Before that, I need to write my proposal. Before that, there can be a number of milestones that you set up. They don't have to be complicated, just something that you can say, I'm making progress. And it may come down to that every day, I'm also making progress. You can see the picture here where this person is writing it down. It helps actually to journal a little bit and just get your thoughts out on paper each day so that, again, you're learning from your experience and you're recording it, because we all think that once we think it, we're going to remember it forever, but you're probably going to forget it unless you come back to it and continue to work through. And a journal is a great way to do that. Yes, Julia, I would agree. The expectations of others are often quite difficult to deal with, and it depends upon also how much power they have. Your major professor might have a lot of power, and so that's where it's a personal obstacle, and it's also a personal solution. We have to figure out what obstacles we can work with and what we can do to minimize that impact. And please don't go this alone. That's where a mentor or a friend or a colleague, you can talk about these different challenges with them, get some ideas. They can give you some suggestions on what you've done that's worked or not worked. We often like to keep this public, but if we are willing to accept the vulnerability that comes with it, and to be comfortable with that vulnerability, it can be very freeing for what we want to do. Advisor not readily available, Sherry, is a challenge. And not getting feedback from them is a challenge. Then you're left to kind of bounce around and come up with your judgment yourself. And I see that with Betsy's reply. And, you know, a lot of us, when we don't have feedback and we don't have a view of what the people who are going to judge our work believe, then we often go to the negative and we think the worst, right? But not thinking the worst is part of this. We have to make it through this, and it's like teamwork or managers with Betsy, it's believing that people have positive intent and remembering that probably they're just busy, or maybe they've got bad habits or things like that. So if we assume they have positive intent in their actions, or maybe just benign intent in their actions or inactions, we can then make plans based on that assumption and be able to adapt a little better. If we decide that they've just got it in for us, we really ought to either change that belief or change that advisor. And sometimes you can do that, sometimes you can't. I would start with the less drastic and explore that. One thing that's important is for each obstacle that you've identified, and there could be 10 or 15, you might start with the ones that are most important and work on those. So don't overwhelm yourself listing all the obstacles, but pick 2 or 3 important ones, write them down. And then for each obstacle, how do you know it's happening and what are you going to do about it? And you have to come up with that solution. And then that's part of your planning. You want to get everything in the WOOP cycle down, the wish, outcome, obstacle, plan. And then you want to publicly declare your intention to your loved ones, at least, but maybe to others who are going to say, wow, I thought you were going to get your degree. It's put a little skin in your game, a little anxiety even in your game by public declaration. And that will also help you complete normally. Don't do it if it just terrifies you. You might try it with some other things. Now that's the full WOOP process, those 4 steps. I recognized, because one of my jobs is to coach faculty to do a better job coaching their students. and I have about 70 faculty that I regularly interact with. I know that the S, O, and L, or SOL is how I pronounce it, are a way of giving feedback to yourself that keeps it from being negative, or to others that keeps it from being negative. So keep a change diary, but then within that diary, reflect your progress and be positive about it. Identify what you did well. Identify what happened or what you did that made it turn out right. We all grow much more strongly and learn much more strongly from things that go well, and especially when we can identify why they went well. We can build on those. If other people are telling us what's going on and what's wrong with our performance, we're not too happy about it. And that's actually what faculty are really good at, is finding fault. It seems that they're less aware that you can find strength. And then you can look at those strengths and you can look at the performance that someone does and think about, okay, that performance was this strong. Maybe it's a 80% or 70%. That's actually strong. You've learned to do that level of work. Now, describe the opportunities you have to yourself, or get someone else to tell you what the opportunities are, to take the strengths you already have, build on them, and strengthen even more the performance for next time. One reason one writer doesn't like the word feedback is because it's like the comment made earlier, I wish I started my PhD 10 years ago. Feedback refers to the past in a way. So you can think of it as flipping it around and doing feed forward, because it's not about the past, it's about learning from the past, but changing the now so that the future becomes what we want it to be. I like the comment, Sherry, letting go of your ego and turning it around and learning from others. So in addition, along the way, you can capture the learnings that you maybe weren't aware of while this was happening, but now on reflection, you are really getting some learning out of it. And I started using SOL 12 or more years ago because it was really much kinder to myself. It goes right along with growth mindset. Whereas we look at our mistakes as learning opportunities. I would say not just mistakes, but entire performances. There are always things that go right, and there are some things that go wrong. And in traditional world, we focus on what went wrong. But we're going to learn more and grow more from focusing on what went right and what we want to do differently the next time. So you might hear a cycle in here. But before I move on to the next slide, Lilia, the change diary is just that journal that I talked about earlier, where you take a little time each day and you write down. It can be at the end of the day, because what's nice about that is you do it once. You write down how the day went. You tell yourself what your strengths were, what your opportunities are, and maybe there are opportunities for tomorrow. So you're going to bed with that positive image in your mind, and you're capturing your learning, and then you do it again the next day. So it doesn't have to be more than 5 minutes of, it's essentially positive psychology, but it's a structured form of it that helps you continue to grow. And Daria, I appreciate your comment back to Andy. I think that's very insightful. So I want to step back and do a little. I'm a computer scientist in my first academic career. Now I'm a learning scientist, but I still use computer techniques. Here is what we've talked about: wish, outcomes, obstacles, plan. And with a plan, you have to try it. You have to actually perform at least part of the plan, implement it. And it's good to do that on a daily basis and build the habit of planning and implementing and then analyzing and giving yourself feedback, strengths, opportunities, and learning so that you can modify your plan. That's what this lower arrow is modifying your plan and seeing what you can do to become stronger the next day. The second arrow is actually, if you're in the management area, you've probably heard about double loop learning. One is, am I doing this thing right? And that's the lower arrow. And the upper arrow is, am I doing the right thing? Because you want to do the right things that are important, and then you want to get better and do those well. So there's two loops actually going on in this structure. One is your daily thing is probably, am I strengthening what I do every day, rather than saying, am I doing it right? Am I strengthening it, and am I making progress toward my goal? And the other one is periodically to step back and say, do I have the right wish? How can I tune it? Can I tweak it up? Or has this changed for me? Because as you go through this, you're going to learn about yourself and you're going to learn about your world. And it wouldn't be wrong to switch from one wish to another for the future of what you're doing. I've seen many people who have to take a break from their school because they're caring for loved ones. And there just isn't time with everything, earning a living, caring for a loved one, and going on to do that. But maybe they can park that wish and then come back to it. And in the meantime, they set up another wish that continues to make progress and doesn't make them feel like they're failing. And there's a fine line here between giving up when you could have persisted and succeeded, and giving up because you didn't feel confident in yourself. And then there's the practical side of, maybe I need to tweak that wish or change that wish because right now that's really causing too much stress, or it's just not doable in my life. So it's something to think about, this double loop learning that you have here. And Ulker, just a really good insight. I appreciate. Yes, there's more science behind this than we have time to talk about today. But that science includes the reality that we create for ourselves. And I think that's what you're talking about. There's the expectations and the reality of what we tell ourselves. That they call it the personal narrative at times, and also the family narrative and the cultural narrative. That those things define our realities for us until we're willing to recognize how those are hindering us and then think about them differently. That's embedded in here as a technique, but it's much more challenging, and when you're finding yourself coming up against that, it's really helpful to get a mentor who's dedicated to helping you work through the change that you want to see. That's this last question. Where do others fit in? So I want you to take a little time, write down, with respect to your wish, who could offer you the best support? And even if it's someone you don't know or haven't identified right now, like earlier, we talked about learning from other graduate students. That's one type of support. And is there a professor or a mentor or a family member, someone who's not wrapped up in the outcome personally, because that gets complicated, but who can say, I want to support you. And if you only had the courage to approach them and ask them, they would be willing to do it. So write that down. Where do some of those others fit in who can help you be successful? Because you don't have to do this alone. And then I just think these two tools work really well together. Whooping crane's just my mascot, if you will, for this work. And the bright, sunny, illuminated path that you create for yourself through introspection, reflection, and a structured process of learning about yourself and your environment and what you can change to get your wish fulfilled. I wish I had a pill that would just make it happen, or the magic wand. Hasn't turned out to be true in my life, and just wanting it hasn't turned out to be true. But I've found this to be a really effective way, as I started my second career as a learning scientist, to make the changes in my life that I wanted to. And it started with really realizing that my purpose is to help students achieve their goals. And I appreciate the chance to talk with you about that. I am open for questions. We have some time left and would be happy to have more discussion. The last slide is just references, so when you download it, you can have that. Or
So people, if somebody wanted to talk with their microphone, they can just raise their hand here, and I can make them a presenter, which will give them mic capacity in case they want to have a talk, or we can or continue with the chat. I didn't want to cut Robert off, who was asking about books that you might suggest, but just to let people know, if you put up your hand, it's at the bottom of the chat box. I will give you presenter status and you can talk too.
Okay. I will then go forward to this slide. I have found Dean really helpful here. Making habits, breaking habits, why we do the things, why we don't, and how to make any change stick. And his recommendation is to, the things that are really important, repeat them, use that if-then approach of the obstacles, and the mental contrasting of, yes, there's good things that happen, but realistically, I've got to do things. It's not an expensive book. I think it's also a, if you just search for Jeremy Dean, it would be out there, and he's got a number of other books. I haven't read them yet, but they look to be really interesting and helpful. It's very practical. Keegan approaches immunity to change a little bit more abstractly. Keegan and Leahy are Harvard psychologists, but all of their books are really good, and they continue to get better. So this may not be the best one, the immunity to change, but look at some of the later, more recent ones. Very readable. And he is a practitioner, so he has a consulting business that works with organizations, and they just want to jump right to change. And what he finds is there's a progression in the learning of that organization that needs to occur before they can come to the change. And a lot of it is about conditioning the mindset of the people that are working on it. Part of it is that growth mindset of seeing your performance in terms of strengths and opportunities so that you can improve it. But a lot of it is the language we use to talk to each other. And I call it the language of coaching. The last book is 6 languages that will help you make the changes in yourself. It's an interesting way and another approach that also appears to work well. And Prasanth, there is a recording. Does anybody want to share, as Alana suggested?
And I had just a comment, because a number of the people were writing about challenges that have to do with graduate school, which of course is my passionate for helping. And I just want to say that if you sign into your PD.education site, you'll see that there's a new book out called Navigating the Hidden Curriculum of Graduate School. And a number of the questions that you were asking about, supervisors who don't show up, those kind of things, are one of the things that David has mentioned that is helpful is when you don't have the answer you need, who else is going to help you get the answer you need? And sometimes that's a book. So specifically, I wrote it to get to a lot of the questions that, like the ones you were asking, that we hear. So I thought I'd give a little plug to the fact that there is help out there. And of course, there's help by coming to the Monday 15-minute research boosts. You'll have the chance to ask any question about anything in graduate school, and you'll get my concerted opinion, which I think can help move things forward. So a couple of extra resources I would throw in. And then David, back to you. You got both Sherry and Rami have come in with more questions.
Yes, I love those questions. So I was going to ask for your help, Alana, if that's all right.
Always.
Can you give me just name a couple of strengths from this presentation today?
Oh yeah, I can right away, because I picked up on them when I went through. I was just finishing going through the literature on remote professional development, and one of the things they said was that people working remotely don't get enough evidence of what they are doing right or how they are contributing to the whole. And I picked up on you commenting, oh, I really liked what you just said to someone else. So maybe that's something everybody here can do for each other, is be positive in the contributions everybody is making to the group. Because this was an active chat. This was people, if you didn't put in your 2 cents, you saw other people probably having similar challenges to you, and that's helpful.
And supporting each other.
Yeah, supporting and just having the guts, I would say, to put out there, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, and have other people say, oh yeah, me too, or whatever. So that was and I was working the process with my thing as I went through, David, and I found that the why was pretty pushy. I had to get through that, and it did help me be really clear on why I'm doing this for other people, what part of that is for other people, and what part of that is because I'm driven to make this kind of difference. So good for me to have those two outside, possibly good for other people too. But I do see you've got some good questions coming in. So
Alana actually gave Rami the full example of SOL. She gave the strengths that were there. She talked about the opportunity, the strengths of a very active conversation, of seeking feedback, of giving feedback, and participating in a conversation, doing it more, the opportunity to reach out to others, go get a book. And by the way, I bought Alana's book, and I love it. I think it's a very strong book. Someone was asking for a link. Renee wanted a link for that, Alana, if you want to put that in. And then the learning from it was just, for Alana, it was using the 7 questions and finding them to be a really good way to interrogate yourself. So that's an example. And it was all phrased very positively. None of it was, well, you should have done more of this, or you didn't do that, and you screwed that up. Often that's the kind of feedback we get. And I really enjoyed having the feedback from Alana, and I feel even more inspired to create more conversation next time and really get that. As far as feeling tired all the time to write or be productive, one of the things that's suggested, Hannah, is to look at the times of day when you are your most creative. And often for people, that's in the morning. And we find ourselves checking social media, reading the paper, returning emails and things that are not using our time productively. So we want to select and control the time. We each only have 168 hours in a week. How you spend that time should be determined by you. There are things you're going to have to do, but maybe you can time shift and do it when you're most fresh, because what's most important to you is probably that creative, productive time. And so optimize that for yourself and build some other things around it. And then the other thing is to make sure, you're getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night so that you're neurologically taking care of yourself and letting your memories form and feel rested and things like that. It's a deep thing, but some of this is just that learning cycle, which was another question that we had. What is this learning cycle, and how does SOL fit in? So you come down initially through the WOOP, and you get to the place where you go, okay, I'm ready to try it. You implement it. And while you're implementing it, you're doing your plan, and then each night, if you can, sit back with the journal and just try to write down the strengths, opportunities, and learning that you did for that day. And your opportunities are going to be things that you try to do tomorrow to make it better. And that's this first loop where you come back, maybe you change your plan a little bit to incorporate that opportunity, and you circle on it. And, that's going to be where you spend most of your time. You do the upfront work, and then you get into the hard work of actually making it work, learning from your own experience by being reflective and altering your plan and not giving up. Giving it a real try, and sometimes the challenge is within yourself, sometimes it's outside. And as Alana said, grab those resources, whether it's another human being or a resource like a book.
And David, on that one, on the motivation, on the I just can't quite get it up to write issue, you talked to us about the obstacles, about being really clear about the obstacles.
Mm-hmm.
And in the navigating book, one of the things I suggest is be aware of what you're really afraid of what you think you don't know. Because if we have in the back of our heads an insecurity that I don't know enough, or I can't write unless I am secure that what I have to write is worth something. And so if we can address that, sometimes then we'll have the relief. Somebody else can tell us, oh yeah, you can talk out loud. You can say, this is what I want to say. Does this make sense? And is it interesting? And just having somebody else say yes to that can help us have the desire to write it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think everything you said today, outcomes, obstacles, plan, every one of those, we can keep working until we figure it out.
Thank you. That's exactly it. And thank you, Olker. It is nice to know we are not alone, and very much enjoyed interacting with all of you. I think we're at the time frame.
And, you know, I just have to say to everybody, we are blessed. So many graduate students find that this is a place where you can come and get this kind of conversation. So please tell your friends on campus. Please keep coming back. And we're just delighted to hear from you. The PD Education site, this will be up on the PD Education site within the month. So you can pass other friends on to it, and all of you will get the recording. David, it's always a pleasure.
Oh, I'm so energized every time I work with this group and you, Alana. Thank you so much.
You make us think, you make us work harder. We are really happy anytime you have a new idea and you want to come share it. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Vladimir, Robert, Jessica. Thank you, Renee, Daria. Bye-bye.